I get a lot of questions about isolating hair, and I want to show you for just a few minutes a couple of the techniques that I use when I isolate hair. I'm using a really simple example, so you're going to have to take these tools and techniques and just step them up to the next level for more difficult situations. This is going to be a little bit easier just for our purposes of showing you how it's done, and I realize that a lot of the isolations you do may be more difficult than this. You can adjust these techniques to suit your needs, but this will show you a few good techniques for isolation. Now, I have two images here in my layer palette which I want to use and composite together. I have on the top layer a shot of this model, and this is the original shot, and it was shot with a foil background here. I want to get rid of that foil background, and I want my bottom layer to show through. Now, my bottom layer is an old book texture that I've chosen that's going to go well with the wood grain look of the place that she's at and kind of the rustic feel of the image. So I want to replace the foil that you see here behind her hair. I want to replace that with the old book texture, but we're going to have to make it look natural and normal, and I'm going to show you how to do that. First thing I'm going to do is make sure that the layer that I want as my primary layer, the layer I'm going to be isolating the hair on, is above the background layer. I'm only going to be working on the layer with the hair. I'm not going to do anything to the background. It's a lot easier just to work straight on the layer with the hair. So what I'm going to do to get started is I'm going to go down to the bottom of my layers palette and add a layer mask. Click on the little black box with a white circle in the middle, and now I have a layer mask on the layer with the hair. Once I have my layer mask, I'm going to go over and select my brush tool. Going to choose black as my foreground color, and as I paint black onto my layer mask, I'm going to make whatever part I paint on invisible, if you're not familiar with layer masking. So I want to have black as my foreground color, choose my brush, and bring your hardness all the way down to 0. Now I do that because it gives me a little bit more margin for error as I paint on my mask. If I have a soft edge brush, it looks a little bit better around the edges, less hard, less harsh isolation. So I'm just going to paint on my layer mask with this black soft edged brush, and as I do, it gets rid of a lot of the white that is there out in that open space, but that's the easy part. We knew we could do that. That's not too hard. What we want to do is get the intricate details here at the hair. We want to get rid of the white, but we want to leave the hair. We want to leave the little strands of hair and make it look very natural. Now, how do you do that without spending all day isolating in between these hairs? Obviously, you don't want to sit here with a brush all day and try to paint in between these hairs. So I'm going to show you a little bit faster technique. I'm going to go over here to the eraser tool and grab the background eraser tool. Now, just a little disclaimer here, we are going to switch off the layer mask to our layer, and we're going to do some destructive editing. I recommend before you do this that you duplicate your layer. So I'm going to do that right now just to show you a best practice. Go down, drag it to the new layer, and duplicate that layer. And the reason I do this is if you make some mistake while doing a destructive edit, you can always go back and reference that original that hasn't been damaged yet. So now that I've duplicated that layer, I'm going to choose the visible button and uncheck that for the layer below so that I only see two layers right now. My new duplicate that I'm fixing to attack with an eraser, and the underlying layer that I want to show through. So I have my background eraser tool, and it's very important that you go up here into the options, set your background eraser tool to sample only once. That is the middle option here of the three, and that its limits is discontiguous from the drop down box. Now usually the tolerance of the background eraser tool is set fairly low by default, and the way this tool works is as you place your crosshair over a section of the image and you start to paint there, it samples that color of the image and eliminates all surrounding colors that are within that tolerance. So in other words, if I have a low tolerance and I have an image like this where there's a somewhat white background but it has shadows and whatnot, and I start to paint, it's going to eliminate a lot of the background but not all of it. So what you're going to see is I'm still getting better results than I would have if I'd have tried masking this with a brush. But as I zoom in, it's still not acceptable results. It's not isolation that I like. I can still see blue and kind of this light color around the hair, which is not pretty at all. It's not the final touch I'm looking for. It doesn't blend in very well, and it gives it what we call a halo effect, which you can tell somebody obviously isolated it. So I'm going to undo that, and I'm going to show you how I'd solve that. Go up here to your tolerance on your background eraser tool, and you're going to drag it to the right, and in this case I'm going to set mine pretty high. I'm going to set it to 76%, and I'm going to do the same thing I just did. Now I recommend that before you do this, you go right-clicking. You can get to this menu here, but you go into the settings for your brush on the eraser and drop the hardness down on that brush as well, all the way down to where it eliminates that hard edge as you isolate. And we're going to see what this looks like. I'm going to take right here on the edge of this white, being careful not to sample the hair. I'm going to sample the white and paint up and down the length of her hair. And you want to make sure your brush, in this case, I don't want it to go into the white of her shirt, which is really similar to the white of the background. And I'm just going to paint along the edge here. Alright, that was all in one brush stroke. We're going to zoom in and take a look. And what you'll notice is now we've eliminated the white, we've eliminated the glow, and we've got a really natural look here. To the hair, you can see all the different little strands of hair. It's a lot more delicately isolated, and it was very fast, very easy to do. So now we have a clean isolation using both the layer mask tool and also using the background eraser tool. And these are just two techniques you can use when isolating hair that may help you do it a little bit faster depending on the color of your background. It's always a little easier if you have hair that does not match your background. If you're isolating yellow hair on a yellow background, you're going to spend all day, and there's really not a simple way around that. But this is a fast technique if you want to do it similar to what I just did here. I hope this helps you out. Take it to the next level and try it on a harder image.